Divorce happens. In fact, it happens to almost 50% of first marriages. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Divorce Happens, a podcast to educate, inspire, support, and yes, make you laugh through divorce and beyond so that you can start fresh on the next phase of your journey. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh.
You get divorced. You get divorced.
Getting divorced?
I'm getting a divorce.
You're getting a divorce.
Because she's getting a divorce.
So what if I get divorced?
Hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with inspiration, education, a little bit of laughter, and everything you need because, as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here today with Melissa, who I'm very excited about this conversation. Melissa is one of our amazing fresh starts experts. Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Of course. So I am a real estate broker and property manager in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have been a licensed realtor for 23 years, and we have a huge portfolio of homes we manage. We've had the majority of the same clients for the last 20 plus years, helping them buy, sell, invest, and navigate these family changes and lifestyle changes. So we deal with all of this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you work with a lot of people because I remember once you told me and I was like blown away with the number of houses and people.
Right. So we have 325 homes that we manage on a
Wow.
day-to-day basis for people. And then, of course, we do hundreds of transactions a year in the brokerage, helping people buy and sell and also invest. So we've got 8 of us total that work in our office. And so there's a lot of moving pieces. And as we've talked about, just a lot of familial changes and lifestyle changes that we end up being a part of. And so we thankfully are that resource for our clients, which is good.
I love that. You know, we talk a lot about the divorce team when you're going through a divorce, and a lot of people don't realize that having a realtor is really an important part of your team. One reason is that a lot of, I'm going to say women especially, have to downsize or move out or find a new place to live. And so what I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about here today is, what does that process look like? You know, and obviously it's so different for every single person and it's such a big topic. But if somebody's listening to this and I'm going to say maybe they're considering divorce or they're in the early stages and they're like, I'm probably not going to be able to stay in my home. I'm going to call a local realtor or my friend's a realtor. How do you begin that conversation of what do you even need, Melissa? What are your options for moving forward?
Sure. And I think, it does sound very intimidating. I always think about if I had to put myself in that situation, knowing that my finances are going to change. I'm dealing with my kids and how that's going to affect my kids and the school district they're in and things like that. I may or may not be taking my family pet. And then how does that work? I may be dividing everything in my household in half. And so do I have furniture and how much furniture do I have? And all of that plays into that. And I think it's super intimidating. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people probably in relationships maybe they're ready to be out of, because it is super intimidating. And so I think, obviously everybody knows a realtor. Probably most people know 2 or 3 realtors. I had somebody one time tell me that they knew 10 realtors. And, the problem is sometimes you don't want that person who's been your family realtor in your business.
Right.
Because they're almost too close. And so sometimes I think there's also nothing wrong with going out and seeking someone who maybe you don't know that well intimately. I think sometimes they know too much. And sometimes those alliances are kind of weird with they're friends with your husband and they're friends with you too. And now that's weird. And so I also think there's nothing wrong with, going to your chamber of commerce and finding out who they recommend. Going to, people outside of your normal work circle or friend circle and asking for referrals or references. Doing a Google search outside of Zillow, I would tell you, doing a Google search on people who maybe specialize in divorce housing after. Using, obviously, your platform is amazing for recommending realtors.
Yeah.
And then maybe getting a hold of a couple different realtors and just asking questions. And I would say, asking questions of, do they help people find short-term housing?
Right.
Do they help people find, rentals? Because
Yep.
sometimes you need to kinda let the dust settle. It's really difficult, I think, to come right out of a home you're selling, going right into a home you're
Yeah.
buying.
Yeah.
So I would tell you that there's nothing wrong with doing a short-term rental, and I don't necessarily even mean like an Airbnb, but maybe something for 90 days, maybe
Right.
something for 6 months, maybe something for 12 months,
Right.
so you can get your feet under you.
Yeah.
And, we've had a lot of our divorced clients do things like, um, move into a rental that's furnished
Mm.
and put their stuff in a pod, as an example,
Mhm.
once the
Mhm.
house does finally sell and things are situated, because the last thing you wanna be doing is trying to make these life decisions based on furniture, trying to make
Yeah.
these life decisions based on the timing. I think that's super difficult. So I think if you did something like, contacted a realtor or contacted a property manager and said, "Hey, I'm kind of in this limbo type of situation.
Right.
I need something for 90 days, or I need something for 6 months that I
Right.
ultimately could extend if I choose to, so I can get my feet under me." Most people totally understand that. A lot of us have been through that. And
Mhm.
so, being able to kind of feel out that, relationship and find out if you
Right.
feel like you're in a safe place with those people, and then realizing that it may be a short-term decision, but it gives you a little breathing room, and I think that's super important.
I love that because I think so much of the divorce process is like black and white, right? And so you're like, I'm going to move from this house. And especially, I would say for parents, right? You're like, well, I need to find another place for my family. But maybe the only place in the school district is a rental. Or maybe, I mean, I didn't want to have to take care of another house, after my divorce. I was tired, right? So I like the idea of giving permission, especially to moms, right? To say, like, it's okay, go enjoy, go pay a little bit less for a rental, save some money, right? Um, I also want to talk about, and I say this a lot, it's so important to have a realtor you feel comfortable with because often they're like the middleman, right? Have you experienced that?
All the time, and I will tell you that we've had so many times where, the husband as an example, and I'm not making him the bad guy,
Yep.
but the husband as an example has shown up with some random realtor, and my client has called and said, "I don't trust that person, I don't know that
Yeah.
person. You've been our go-to human for all these years. What
Right.
do I do?" And I've said, "Let me make kind of a presentation back to the both of you
Mm,
separately to remind that other spouse what I can do for you, why I'm a good choice."
mm,
And then sometimes if we just can't get to a point where both parties are feeling trusting of the same person, that I've really kind of taken it back to the divorce attorney and
mhm.
said, "Who else do you have in your book of,
Yep.
people you recommend who might be a good fit for both of these guys?" Because
Yeah.
I do think that fit for both parties is super important. And sometimes you're not gonna get there because
Right.
everything's friction, and so there's just so much friction during that time that you
Yeah.
won't get there. But I think, again, same thing. Sometimes your regular realtor who you've had for the last 20 years is too close to the situation.
Right.
So then it's really about finding somebody who maybe you haven't worked with before, but that you do trust,
Yeah.
that you feel like and there's nothing wrong. I wanted to say this too, and I kind of thinking about the process. There's nothing wrong with interviewing 2 or 3 people, to find somebody who you
Right.
both can get along with for that transaction, because
Yeah.
the reality is this is what we do for a living. We're used to having to interview. You don't
Mhm.
have to pick the first person that you pull out of the yellow pages or that you Google or whatever.
Yeah.
It is totally okay to interview multiple people. And then 2, sometimes people that have done a lot of divorce real estate are a really good resource because they know kind of what's gonna happen towards the
Yeah.
end, which
Yeah.
is usually a lot of friction based on decision making that has to happen towards the end. And if that person is, um, if they've had that before and they
Right.
know what to expect rather than just a regular old realtor, they
Yeah.
often can actually make that a little bit simpler for both parties. I know you feel this way too, but
Mhm.
we almost feel like we're wearing a lot of different hats. One of them being like a psychiatrist or
Yeah.
a therapist,
Yep.
because we know that there's a lot more going on here than just that financial
Yeah.
piece to it.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. One more question before we jump into what you do. If the average time that a woman contemplates divorce before she asks for it is about 2 years. what would be the harm if a woman's listening to this and thinking about divorce in getting a realtor before she, safely, right? Before she maybe mentions divorce, because you don't have to pay a realtor until, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think having somebody on your side, like, I'm just going to give an example, right? Let's say that your kids go to school in the district and you don't want to leave the district, right? But maybe there's not a lot of rentals in the district. Your budget's going to be small. What's the harm in getting a realtor a year out and going, "Look, I please confidentially, I'm thinking about going through a divorce. Can you keep your eye out for a place for me?" Have you seen that happen, or what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I have had that happen quite a few times over the years.
Mm,
And I would say, again, there is no cost involved upfront.
right,
So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I may have a life change coming up and I'm trying to navigate that. Um, I would love to have some information about what I'm looking at as far as cost, what I'm looking
yeah,
at as far as moving costs, timelines, what time of year is best.
right,
If I'm going to look at a rental in this school district,
right,
what's that process look like? How far out do I need to be planning for? Blah, 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 blah. There's nothing wrong with having those conversations. Now, I will say that the issue usually comes up that if that person starts sending you things by email or sending you things by
right,
text, your your significant other or your
yeah,
soon to be no
yeah,
longer other very well may come across that,
yes,
and so you need to be prepared for that conversation because
yep,
there's been more than once that I've kind of been the catalyst because they've come across emails I'm
mhm,
sending with properties, and then there's, potentially
yeah,
some friction. So I think just kind of deciding what the best method of receiving that information is, and maybe it's not being on a text feed or an email feed, but that, "Hey, once a month, we're gonna get together for coffee, and you're gonna show
mm,
me some information."
mm,
You need to do this in a way that isn't gonna get you into any kind of a friction, but that you can get the information. And so even being
mm,
prepared with that part of being able to say, "I don't want you to send me anything yet, but I would love to get together with you for coffee every 2 weeks so we can talk about it." That may
mm,
even be a really nice way to handle that, but at least get the information you're looking for.
yeah,
Because I
I
know
love
it
that.
sometimes ends up weird.
Yeah, I had a friend that happened to, and it was actually the opposite. She filed for divorce without telling her spouse she was gonna file, and that a realtor was looking at the filings and sent her information to the house. So, yeah, and I will say this too, if you are looking for a realtor who is amazing, reach out to anybody at Fresh Starts, and if they can't help you, they'll find you somebody because they understand the severity of that. So, whether it's Melissa or if you're in New York or New Jersey, whatever, we have realtors for every state, and, if they can't help you, they can find you somebody and understand because our experts, have to sign our ethos, and so they understand that. Melissa, speaking of, where do you work, and if people wanna get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Right. So I am in the Las Vegas, Nevada area, which encompasses Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, Summerlin. We have a couple of Air Force bases here, so we end up doing a lot of work with military as well, and we're able to help. I'm also, again, a part of this great network. And so if I can't help you, I am happy to refer you to somebody who's in the network or out of the network if they don't have someone in your area.
Yep.
I've again been doing this a long time, and I think the big difference, what I would tell people, and when you're talking to somebody you want to hire, is just that they have kind of that same moral compass and that they're working from the heart, not from the pocketbook, obviously,
Mhm.
and just that they are willing to be a resource for you even before you're ready to pay them. So
Yeah,
just know that you need to look for somebody who's going to take good care of you in regards to that.
I love that, I love that. Melissa, if somebody's listening to this and they're going through a divorce, what would be some wise words you could leave them with?
I think that your health and well being has to be number one no matter what. We all
Yeah.
go through some stuff. And
Mhm.
I think that finding your people, finding that support, and knowing that we're all out here and ready to help you is super
Mm.
important. You're not doing this on your own.
Yeah.
We've all kind of dealt with it, whether it's our own personal stuff or with clients and friends. And just find your humans, find your tribe, and
I love that.
lean on that support and know that that's why we're all here. So
Yeah.
it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Looking back, I always say to everybody, if we look back 6 months from now, and you've done all the hard stuff. And you're going to be going, wow, I was able to do all the hard stuff. And it's going to be okay. Super hard when you're in it, but looking back, it's amazing to realize what you've gone through and that you're able to accomplish it. So hang in there.
I love it. I love it. Hang in there. Melissa, we appreciate you so much. Thank you. This was a really important conversation, so I appreciate you taking the time. Divorce Happens is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the only divorce registry platform for everything you need to begin again, including home items, hype team, and everything in between. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh. We're here to support you before, during, and after divorce. Head to freshstartsregistry.com for more info.